Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday. I am so excited for our session today. We have an amazing duo. Before I introduce them, I'm just gonna wait a little bit and admit people as they roll in. While we're waiting, it would be fantastic to hear from you in the chat. Hi, Aaron. Thanks for popping in. Hi, Jordan. Hi, Tom. If you could just say where you're coming from, pop it in the chat. Where are you in the world? What was intriguing about the title of this live learning event, Quantum Physics and Self-Esteem? I think it's Aaron's from BC. It's fantastic, Aaron. I think we have a bunch of Canadians. We have a few from the UK. And Ola, what time is it there in Dubai right now?
It's 8 p.m. here.
Okay.
Hello, Hope's dad is here.
Hope's dad is here.
Hello, Dad.
I told
Nice
him
to meet
he's
you.
showing up this week.
It's so cool that you're joining. Thank you so much for coming.
So we have, and Jordan is currently Niagara Falls. Cool. Amazing. So I'll just be on the standby to let people in, and we can just get rolling. How about that?
Thank you. I just want to say this is my warmest welcomes to everybody. Thank you for joining us, Aaron, Lubna, Robert, Jordan, Sausan, Stephen, Tom. Hi, everybody. It's really nice to have you here. By the way, Sausan is my colleague at work. We work together.
Actually, you know what, Ola, while we have a few people on, before you take it away, you and John, I'm just going to say a little thing about you, if you don't mind.
Please do.
And for those who are not familiar with Hope Braintrust, welcome. This is a collaborative space online and in person. Yes, sometimes we do in-person events designed for and by this growing community of educators, innovators, and entrepreneurs. And my mission, Hope, is to mobilize authentic connections. We were just talking right before you all popped on about me encouraging John and Ola to be as real and honest and frank as they possibly can be. I think that when we're able to pull off veils, really speak honestly and from our hearts, authentic connections happen between all members of students, teachers, parents, builders, academics, everyone in between. So this is a place that you're going to meet courageous and willing people you may never otherwise have met. And I want to invite you to check out Hope Braintrust. I'll put the link in the chat if you're interested in exploring our future of live events and ways to connect and collaborate with people around the world. I am so excited about this duo. We have John, who's on the border of Wales. He's in the UK, and Ola is in Dubai. Ola is an educator and a mental and well-being coach. And John Rainford, I mean, you're going to be able to explain what you do, what you've done, but I would say you're a systems thinker, you're an educator, you're a researcher, a mentor, and both so much more. So Ola, I'm going to hand over the mic and I'll be in the background on chat, here to support.
Thank you so much. I hope you're able to see my screen. If you can confirm, that would be great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much again for joining. I'm going to give you a little brief on what to expect, and then I'll hand over to John, and then we will be dancing together. So, what to expect? This is a little journey of exploration. That's really what we are expecting, not just from you, but even from ourselves, because every conversation I have, either with Hope or with Joan, turns out to be always the same. It's always a journey of exploration, but it's never the same thing that we explore. So it's kind of always the same, but never the same. So we are going to explore ways of thinking and tools to implement. And if you are coming out of this session with one thing that you have explored, then that is a big win for us and for you. But we promise it's going to be more than just one thing that you will explore. So I'll hand over to John.
Hi everyone. I noticed that somebody, is it Tom, came from Liverpool. That's my hometown, by the way. So I have a sense of humour which will be very similar, I'm sure. But anyway, so what I wanted to start was with automatic responses to things. If you're familiar at all with quantum physics and observations and so on, you'll know that it's actually challenging the way we think. So, and part of this session today is to look at how we think, and maybe we could rethink in a different way, perhaps. I spent a lot of my time getting people to think differently, actually, scientists, business people, politicians sometimes, but trying to get them on a different path of thinking, because I think we've been very conditioned pretty much from birth to think in a particular way, and it's very non-linear, it's very linear thinking. And so what I do is unbrainwash people. So I've been to the States and worked with about 200 scientists and said, over the coming months, we're going to unbrainwash you. So this is part of the journey for you guys to be unbrainwashed, if it makes any sense. So I wanted to start with, if everybody could fold their arms for me.
And please show us, like I am doing now. Show us your arms.
Yeah, we need to see your arms. This is quite important. Yes, thank you so much for everyone participating. And then I want you to put them back the other way. Okay, so put back the other way. And that usually gets some smiles. And I wanted to know what people thought about that experience going the other way. Does anybody want to just chip in, because it's interactive, this session?
Can I do
think about it.
Oh, Robert, please go ahead.
I had to really think about it. It was difficult.
Anybody else? Because
Yeah,
that's
it was a bit
difficult.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a bit uncomfortable. It's a bit different than usual.
Anybody else want to say uncomfortable, difficult? Yeah, that's all good.
Yeah, I was going to say the same. It didn't feel the way to do it. It was like uncomfortable and like I shouldn't be doing it this way.
It's like unnatural, isn't it? It's like we're trying to override something. And every day of our lives, we always react in an automatic way. We never challenge that way of thinking. We always just respond. And it's like almost part of our brains say, right, respond this way. And that's automatic. And say, for example, if you get angry, you can't usually control it. But here's the thing, right? Maybe you can control those automatic responses, because this is about the journey of leadership and rising above challenges, and sometimes rising above status quo, authority, not in a bad way, not rebellious, but I'm saying questioning the authority or the wisdom, the handed down wisdom, which we all get.
Yes.
From whatever background, we're always given wisdom and saying, this is the way it's always been done, you should do it this way. And of course, my background's in innovation, so we challenge all of that thinking. Yes. And I think the teachers, particularly today, are more challenged than ever. And rather than just being frustrated and automatically getting angry about it, maybe there's some things we can do about it. And the ways I would suggest is, let's think differently. Let's think differently about how we're actually managing our own lives and maybe impacting other people's lives. Because by whatever we do, if we react angrily, it spreads, doesn't it? If we get angry, other people get angry or get hurt or something. So maybe if we can take 2 steps back, I'll be asking you to take 3 steps back, by the way, but 2 steps at the moment. Take at least 1 step back, then we can actually start thinking, well, maybe my automatic response is not something that is helpful. Maybe if I can take some control of my own life, or the way I think, more particularly, we might be able to do things in a better way. At least we're challenging our handed down wisdom. So we're just going to look at ways of, I think Ola's going to take us into, and Hope going to take us into some breakout rooms now to explore the relationship between, did we want to put that next slide up?
Yeah, just before we go there, John, I want to echo on what you just shared. There's a very powerful quote that I live by, which says that the most dangerous statement is to say, we have always done it this way, and it has always worked.
Yes.
This is a very dangerous statement that is often shared in education, unfortunately, and in many other fields. But I know that it will be always education on the top. And unfortunately, even teachers who are very creative can sometimes fall in that trap. For example, it's the first week of school. We don't have students yet. And I'm talking to one of my colleagues who usually comes to school very early, and she's complaining about being back to work. She's like, oh my God, I can't believe we are starting another year. I feel exhausted already. And I'm like, okay, what time are you going to work tomorrow? Work ideally, because this week we don't have students, starts at 8:30. So she's like, I'm going to leave the house at 6:30. And I'm like, why are you going so early, 2 hours before 8:30? And she's like, well, it's just how I do it. I always like to go early. And I'm like, and how's that helping you? These are the types of automatic responses that teachers tend to do. And then I'm not saying that the system is perfect and it's all teachers' fault, but I'm saying that teachers can gain control just by reconsidering these automatic responses. How long have I been doing this? How is this helping me? And how can I do better? 3 questions. How long have I been doing this? How is it helping me? And how can I do better? So thank you, John. Do you want to share something before I move to the next slide?
Well, doing things better, certainly. Doing things differently, they should consider. That's the key of your message, I think, Ola. When we go into creative mode, when the teams are built up, then they do look at things differently and maybe take different journeys. But the thought processes have already been challenged in a way, in a good way. Yeah. Challenging your own thinking is really positive, I think. Yeah. But yeah, perhaps we'll go into that a bit more later. But yes, at least we're on a track now, which hopefully will get you to think differently.
John, can I just do one thing, just quickly?
Certainly, please do.
And I do love that you're focusing your learning and talk on educators. And I would also open it up. There are parents here, there are creators, there are leadership coaches on the call. And I would say that all of this relates to each of you because you're humans.
I think absolutely. I think, I mean, I've been involved with a lot of mentoring as well with people, and challenging the way they think is one of the first things that we'll look at. Because you know, if you're in a rut, you're never going to get out of the rut if you are content in that. And sometimes because we did a bit of fostering, and some of the children were violent because that was their comfort zone, strangely. So it took some coaxing to get them away from that usual method of automatic responses, like throwing things at you, for example. So it was quite amusing, but also very serious in the sense that we needed to bring them to think differently about themselves, their self-esteem, and a lot of automatic responses. So this is a slide that Ola's put together, which is super, because it's actually circles actually are very powerful things. The circular structure. This is recognized by people like Jung and Freud, that the circular, the Mandela symbols, they call them sometimes, there are healing symbols. So I'm glad that you've chosen circles for this slide. But it does look at how we might relate quantum physics, which you might think is really out there, automatic responses and self-esteem. Actually, they're all related, and we will explore that. In fact, if you can grasp that through this session, fantastic, then we've made some progress, and it might give us a path to take on the next phase, the next session perhaps. So this is a challenge for you. How do we relate quantum physics with automatic responses and self-esteem? So we're going to move into breakout rooms. It is a bit of a challenge, I accept, and then we can actually debate. Actually, there's a powerful learning in this, and we can explore that. But we want you to start exploring yourselves first in the breakout rooms, if that's okay.
It's great. I just want to confirm how I have 2 groups. Would you like tiny groups or 2 groups of 5 work with you and Ola in there? Does that work?
I think it's absolutely fine. Five, as long as everybody gets a chance to be heard. 5 is good. I just would like to explain a little bit further. You don't need to create a PowerPoint slide, but you're welcome to do if you wish. You don't have to draw something out of it, but you're welcome to do if you wish. We need you to connect the dots in the pattern that you think that makes sense to you. And you need to be able to explain why does that pattern of these 3 dots or circle makes sense to you.
Amazing. 15 minutes. I'll pop you in your rooms and we'll see you on the other side.
See you soon.
Excited about this.
Okay, that's great.
Hi, oh, are you still sharing? I'm Jackie Scully. I am a teacher and a podcaster and soon to be author. And my podcast is called The Teacher Story. I interview teachers from all over the world, also other people in education, so not just teachers. And I love this conversation. I'm so into talking about how we think. I also teach psychology. So this is right in my wheelhouse. So I'm very excited to be here.
Super. Who we got left? Come
Hello, I'm Jordan Owens. I'm a web designer, videographer, YouTuber, former professional hockey player, and dad. And yeah, I'm very interested to see where this goes. I am really into self-development, spirituality, the study of epistemology, and all things under that branch or that tree. So yeah, very excited. Nice to meet you, John.
Excellent. Thank you. Somebody else? Sosan, is it?
I think that's it.
I've got Sosan. I don't know whether
Oh, maybe
somebody's actually
camera's off.
occupying.
Right, their camera's off. I'll ask them.
Okay, no worries.
So where do we
So,
go? 3
okay,
circles.
I'm keen to hear your thoughts first, because I don't want to just take over the whole thing and then start, because I'll get on my soapbox and start preaching and stuff like that. So it'd be very interesting to hear each one of your take on the question, which is how do we relate quantum physics with self-esteem, automatic responses. What does anybody want to chip in just to start the conversation going?
Stephen.
Stephen. Go on, Stephen, go for it.
Oh, sure. So I want to start this with a real humility. I don't consider myself anything of an expert on quantum physics, but from my understanding of it, it's really all about self-esteem, because it cultivates a worldview that we observe things into existence. So that we take on incredible power ultimately as the observer. So we observe our life into existence, which is really, to my way of thinking, the opposite of being a slave to automatic responses, which is also so that's, I think that ultimately, philosophically, quantum physics is something that is a tremendous producer of self-esteem, because it's a different way of thinking about who we are.
Beautiful.
Thank you for that, Stephen.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree with Stephen's point. From my understanding, quantum physics is the study of matter, the study of small particles, which is essentially energy. And I think the way that ties into self-esteem is that maybe like the spiritual development is realizing that we are not separate from that we are that too. And there's this thing called consciousness or soul, which gives us the sense that we are separate from that. So that's it in a nutshell, I guess.
Oh,
Very good.
beautiful
That's great. Thank you.
shares.
Wow. I really resonated with what Jordan just said, especially since I've been on this spiritual journey since really 2022. So I am very fresh in this space. And so, I'm very much just learning about quantum physics. So it's very new in, my development. But as far as what Jordan said with spirituality, I think tapping into how I'm thinking back to those dots, how we're all connected and everything's connected. I used this analogy this summer of this spider web I have growing in my backyard, and it is magnificent. It just keeps growing. And now I have like 3 divisions of it. And a huge storm came through back in like early August, and trees were down, branches down, spider webs there. And I'm like, I'm paying attention to that. And it's this interconnected web and how all this energy is flowing. And I think when we, like what Stephen was saying, can observe, pay attention to everything that is around us, the people in our lives, the things that, are connecting us, we're creating that existence. And I think that helps combat the automatic responses or, not having those, because that's all from conditioning, right? That's all from structure and systems. And so when we can take a step back and pay attention to what we've been taught or how we've been conditioned, and then look at the world in a different way and with a different lens through this like interconnected web, to me, it's become really powerful. It's making my life way more meaningful. And that's something I've been writing about in my book this summer. So that's how I kind of see it.
Looking forward to that book, by the way. It sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is Sorsen going to talk to
Yeah,
us, do you think?
I don't know. I think maybe coming in and out. I
Perhaps you
would say
could
that
contribute.
this I'll send her a little message, but this Hope Braintrust for me is like the particles of energy coming together and building that web that you're talking about, Jackie. And there is definitely a spiritual element when we can see the reflections in other people, the resonance, the energy that helps us to move away from that I, me, the independent, and more likely automatic response zone that we could slip into, everyone can, over to kind of a more larger, expansive consciousness, then our self-esteem is much more likely to lift.
Well, I mean, I'm sort of wowed a bit because Stephen said straight away quantum physics and self-esteem, he saw them linked. I thought we were going to go through another journey to trying to get to the self-esteem, and I'm sort of overwhelmed that we're actually right onto that spiritual journey straight away. Fantastic. Does someone want to speak to us, do you think, or is she just listening in, perhaps?
I think listening in for now, and
Okay.
we'll see. Yeah.
Okay, so the few things that came across was like the web. We mentioned the web, and I gather from the conversations that we've had so far that there's a lot of perhaps a yearning for spiritual connectedness, and does that help with the business and the teaching and you know, in your case, Jordan, the web design, does that connect a lot with perhaps hope? Because we're talking about connectiveness here, aren't we? I think we're joining the dots, and maybe we can make it a little bit easier to join the dots, because that's really what this journey is about, isn't it? Because sometimes we feel disconnected, and this is part of the issues that quantum physics throws up, the way we are all connected, and you know, things that we would normally not be connected with. And I think that probably just, I mean, I don't want to start rabbiting on about philosophy and politics necessarily, but in a divided society, it's actually a lot more contentious, I think, when we've got more divisions rather than joins. And I think that what we're all perhaps trying to aspire to is that connectiveness with other people. And then maybe I would suggest maybe that on your panel, Hope, that you introduce people, that there is a sense of yearning for connectiveness, because we are surrounded by, I think, divisiveness, and a lot of things I get involved in, which is breaking down silos within industry. We have to break down the barriers, and the barriers are often self-inflicted through ego trips or whatever it may be. But I think that's where it starts to become a psychological journey rather than just a quantum physics journey or an energy journey. It actually needs to look at the consciousness that Jordan mentioned, that it's about the way we perceive things. Because a lot of what I do is about perceptions, and actually raising the mirror to, are these perceptions correct or are they not? And when we're dealing with mentoring, for example, we have to hold the mirror up either to ourselves or to other people. And I suppose the worst thing is actually holding the mirror up to yourself, because sometimes you cannot see yourself, because you always like to think, well, good stuff about yourself, and that's where perhaps we will need other therapists, or we need other mentors to help us understand ourselves. And it's that yearning, I think, even from a child's point of view, that we're yearning for purpose and rationale for existence and so forth. So I think there is ways, I think, that we create those steps. We don't have to be the product of our experiences. We don't have to be the product of conditioning. We can challenge it, but not necessarily directly, but we can actually circumvent any obstacles in our way, which is really what I've probably done all my life, is helped other people to overcome obstacles, whether it's in business, industry, or on a personal level. So does anybody else want to chip in? Because I don't want to hold.
Well,
Sorry,
I wonder,
Jordan, you're going to...
No, I just wanted to ask if people wanted to share experiences. That maybe, Jordan, you had something else that you wanted to share that resonated, but I know each of you are mentors, and you're holding the mirror up and connecting with other people. And I wonder if anyone wanted to share what that interaction, that connectedness is doing for your self-esteem versus your automated response.
Well, I have a thought or maybe question. Something you said, John, that we don't have to be a product of our experience. And that's something that I know and feel intuitively and embody. But in spreading that message or helping someone else see that as well, is there a compassionate way to teach that to someone who maybe has a victim mentality, and maybe they have a right to, maybe they were something horrific, like they're a sexual abuse victim or something like that? Like how can we teach or share that wisdom that you don't have to let that define you? How can we do that in a compassionate way?
That's a great question. And when we had foster kids, for example, who'd all gone through bad experiences, we had to help them overcome and build resilience into their character. A lot of this is to do with, self-compassion, self-esteem. This is where the self-management of your own responses comes into it. Because you imagine if the foster child that threw things at us had no other way of finding normality, then really that's almost a disaster, because there's no way out. However, if you build up self-esteem, self-compassion with little kindnesses, for example, which they're probably not used to, people who've been damaged in one way or another, but kindnesses do open up channels of positivity and communication. And learning firsthand from children taught us a lot as well, that, as a family, that, we could overcome a lack of self-esteem by self-compassion with starting to love themselves. We just do little things like they would do a scribble, and then we put the scribble into a frame and say, this is an amazing picture, and encouraging them to have a sense of self-worth. And this is all connected with self-esteem, self-compassion, self-management. So as they could manage their emotions, rather than the emotions, the amygdala taking over and saying, let's be angry today, or let's cry today. Maybe we can manage that process.
We had such a powerful conversation that I'm sure you did equally a powerful one. So who would like to share what?
We did it. John was sharing mid-sentence when our breakout room ended. But who in our group would like to share any experiences, connections?
Is it okay if I go first? Because there's something that stuck in my mind after Robert's share.
Yep.
Robert shared that that's why if you are in a leadership position, or if you are giving a speech, or whatever you're doing that has some sort of authority, you have to listen to your people. But before then, Aaron shared that you remove the self from the equation and you just call it esteem. And how that resonates with me is, in psychology, when you are listening to people, you think you are helping yourself. You think you are helping them. But in reality, you are helping yourself to better understand them, and then to better offer your positioning or whatever it is that you're offering, which means more influence and even more authority than whatever any position in the world can give you. And that relates to quantum physics, because it's all about the art of possibilities. Just because you didn't observe, like Robert said, just because you didn't see that, you lost the opportunity. Thank you so much. And I'm sorry if I overtalk. Now I hand over to you.
No over talking. Such an amazing, deep conversation. Who wants to share? Jordan or Stephen or Jackie?
I have maybe a question for Ola and John, and maybe the group. I think these two topics, quantum physics and self-esteem, we can all agree that there is the connection there. And to understand that connection, there needs already to be a level of ego development within you to understand these things and to be able to make that connection, which you get to over time. My question is, what role do psychedelics have in maybe speeding up that understanding or opening you to the possibility that there is a connection or seeing that there is? Any thoughts?
Thank you. I'll wait for Joan and then I will go ahead. There you go, Joan.
I was going to throw it back at you, Ola.
Okay. Go ahead, please, and then I'll go.
Well, I think obviously there's you're opening potentially a can of worms there, but the only thing that we had lots of sessions with hundreds of people in the US actually, and coffee was the only drug that we used. So I'm not even going to be positive or negative about it because I haven't really had that much experience, I have to say up front. But we use coffee, and actually food, the right sort of food can actually help people think in a better way. And often, sometimes the sessions we had, people would start, they'd have a big meal in the middle of the day and then fall asleep a little bit in the afternoon. But in some respects, that's a psychological condition that we were completely aware of, that we could actually understand how people felt. Because, if you're eating something that's, for example, even eating itself, the act of eating can calm other people down. So there are a lot of psychological processes that we should be aware of and be able to exercise to empower us as individuals. So I'm not sure whether that answers your question completely, but that would be my contribution, in the sense that we can open our minds to positive influences is got to be a good thing, I think, overall. Sorry, Ola.
No, it's all good. Thank you. It's a great answer, but I think that you sparked creativity for Robert and Hope. They are both raising their hands. I'm sorry, Hope, I'll have to take Robert first and then you.
Hope and I know someone very well, happens to be her brother, who would say to Jordan that psychedelics have been an immense help to him. That's all I can give you the anecdotal evidence of one person who's close to me. Not having done it myself, I can't say, but for him, he would be right behind you and saying, this is a very useful tool.
I think, yeah, to qualify the set and setting and how you approach any mind opening, whether it's coffee or cocoa or whatever psychedelic of your choice. I haven't had as much experience as my brother, but I did actually have a recent amazing ceremony with different generations of people that was really beautifully curated. And it was like having the veil of our automatic responses, having the veil of the story about you and your own sort of, this is me and this is who I am and this is what I'm about, strip away, and being able to see yourself reflected with much less layers and feeling that energy and connection and quantum physics, I would say, and a lot of beautiful wisdom that's already there, inherent, left as a beautiful, not residue, but a beautiful sort of series of heart notes to carry out after. So I have had the best experiences when the set and setting is right. And I would say doing these kinds of things with different generations is such a beautiful way to remind us all that age is not everything at all. We can access all parts of ourselves. Over to you, Tom.
Thanks for that. I was just going to say as well, it's not a stimulant or any kind or a food or anything. But at the beginning of the year, like for my New Year's resolution, I thought, I need to lose a bit of weight, and the only way I'm going to do that is by eating better, but most of all by exercising. And I've got to say, when I started exercising again, my focus, my productivity on my work was just 10 times better. And I think the energy that you get from exercising and from being healthy, it becomes like a drug. And when you don't do it, you feel guilty and you feel bad about it. And it's like, no, that can't happen again. So I think, doing things like that and remaining healthy within yourself helps your mental health, it helps your work productivity, and it also makes you feel good about yourself again. And I know we're talking about self here, but when you're more focused and you're more productive, that means the work that you're doing with others will be more productive and more focused as well.
And
so
it
I think
also means that you will influence the same behavior to others.
exactly.
As soon as they observe that, like in Robert's share, he said that it's about whatever you observe, and once you observe it, it acts differently.
Yeah, exactly. It's like leading by example, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Embody, show, don't tell, influence. Thank you so much, Hope. I want to actually add to John's and Tom's amazing answers in relation to your question, Jordan. You asked about quantum physics, ego, and esteem, right? Okay, so I have 3 tips. Number 1, the first response that ever comes to your mind is not the best. So let's say I said something that is really upsetting you. The first word you want to say, just don't. And then before you act, there are 2 tips that I live by. I didn't actually read them with this wording. I came up with the wording, but the concept is everywhere in psychology literature. Zoom in, that's number 2, and then zoom out, that's number 3. So what's zoom in? How is this impacting me? Why am I upset about it? What's the level of control I have over it? And then the zoom out, why are the others behaving in that way? Who is impacted by that other than me? When you zoom out, it's like you visualize yourself, and that is quantum physics as well, because it's all about awareness. When somebody is just not looking that way and you just do it, that's zoom out. When you are in an aeroplane and you're starting to just take off, and then you look at the same scene that you have already seen before, how different does it look? The more you go up, the smaller it looks, and then the more elements that you're able to see, just like a puzzle or logo or whatever it is, right? So that's zoom out. So whatever situation you face, first you need to zoom in, and that's you. How am I impacted by this? Why am I upset about it? What's my role in it? And then zoom out, and then you're more likely to act without your ego, because now you're not acting based on just how I feel or first automatic response. You're acting based on facts, zooming in and zooming out. And then you're balancing yourself and others, because you zoom into yourself and then you zoom out to see others and how they are impacted by this. And this is what gives you the opportunity to innovate and come up with something that others haven't been able to come up with, because you are making that balance between quantum physics and the lack of automatic responses. You have overcome that, and you have zoomed in, so you know your esteem, and you have zoomed out, so you know other people's esteem. So that's the best way for me to describe it. I hope that makes sense.
I can add to that, I think. Stephen is in business, he was saying a bit before. If you can take the emotions out of the equation, you can see it for what it really is. Being in business pretty much all my life, I've been managed to take the emotion away out of any conflict, because there's only conflict if you perceive there's going to be conflict. So if you can take 1 or 2 steps back, you can actually remove the emotional trauma that it might be, if you can actually remove it. So this is about, I can just attribute it to the foster children, that we are helping them to control their responses. And by managing the emotional feedback, because that's what it is, it's an emotional feedback. I can't help it, but maybe we can help it. And once we start managing that process, we can do absolutely anything, almost. And this is when we're working with scientists, even though we're talking about children and scientists, they are free from the constraints of an emotional ego problem, for example. So they're not thinking about, well, you're attacking my ego or my power circle, because we've removed, and there's techniques to remove that in the sense that, so that we're not overwhelmed. Because if we're all empathic, which we pretty much are, I think, in this group, then we can have overwhelming emotional responses and reactions. But actually, empathy is a power. It's not a weakness. We need to see it as we can see insight into people. And then if we can actually help other people, as Ola's suggesting, so that we can remove the impediment to communication, because that's what it's about. It's actually preventing us to communicate, even at an emotional level. So with the foster children, they were able to open up at the same time, controlling and managing their own behavior. And it's not as if we were giving them instruction to say, you must behave this way. We had one child who used to kick our dog just because she knew it upsets us. And of course it did upset us. But the point was, we were able to manage our own responses. And if we couldn't manage that, then we're in trouble, because we're not very good foster parents for a start. But we're showing other people, well, you will actually have a reasonable life and happy existence if you can control the way you feel and the way you feel about your emotional response. But the key thing is controlling that, and that takes practice. Sometimes you can do it with meditation, by the way, which is Hope was alluding to before. So there are methods, there are techniques that you can empower yourself as individuals. And this is what I think teaching is all about, and mentoring is empowering the individuals themselves to take control of their own destiny, in a sense. And that I think that's why we're all on this journey of empowering others, because we can see that empathy is a positive thing. But if we can actually encourage other people to manage their responses, I think, the emotional responses, instead of the amygdala taking over us, as it were, then we have a resource, which is what Tom was suggesting, exercise. What is that? That's managing your body. In the physiological sense, the physiological aspects are really powerful ways to induce either a feeling of happiness, or you take action to exercise, all increases endorphins and so forth. So there are ways we can manage our existence. And coming back to what Ola was saying before, that a lot of the teachers perhaps are frustrated because really that they can manage their responses. They don't have to just follow and be miserable, for example. They can actually take some action. And these are techniques we can learn, because we all have that capacity. Sorry if I start rapiding on.
John, I just wanted to go, because my experience with schools, and I've done a lot of work in schools, and I was always horrified at the controlling behavior of nearly all the teachers I meet. And this is, I'm talking about even at the best schools, like Toronto University School, which is one of the best schools in Canada, the norms for teachers would treat children in a way that we would never do it at the back, and never in the army. I mean, really, they feel like lion tamers in a cage full of lions, with a chair and a whip. And I see it all the time, and I see it when I meet teachers. I go, "She's a teacher," because they've got this armor on, and they've got a sword in their hand.
I would say Jackie probably knows a lot of teachers who aren't like that. I mean, you have been
who are not. I hope.
Not
Well,
like that.
this has been a lot of my experience, and I so if we're using this to talk about schools and teaching, I'm constantly depressed by most of the teachers that I meet.
We've got some hope for you, Rob. We do. Definitely.
Yes.
And that's where quantum physics just serves us perfectly fine, because it's the art of possibility and it's also energy. Thank you so much, Tom and Aaron.
Tom has his hand up before me. If you want to go first, Tom.
Yeah, I'll be very quick. I just wanted to say on what John was saying about the emotional side of it. That when I started in my first management positions in like 2011, I would have my one-to-ones or my like mid-year performance review with my leader, and he would give me a constructive feedback. And every time he would say something that I thought was negative, I would get really offended by it. And I was like, and I'd go home and I'd be thinking about it all night and then the rest of the weekend, and I'd be like, why am I feeling like this? And then I did a bit of research on it, and I found out that taking offense to something is a decision we make. So I've decided to take offense. Why didn't I decide not to take offense? So I thought, I know, next time I have one of these sessions with my boss, I'll see how I feel if I don't, if I make the opposite decision. And you know what I did? And ever since then, I've always, every team I've ever worked with, I've always said to them, like, if I'm giving them feedback on their performance, if I can see it in their face that they're going to take offense to this, or they're going to be a bit upset, I'll discuss the decision making process with them and help them with that. I wouldn't just like give them the feedback and then there you go, let's go back to work. No, I would listen to them and help them in that way. And I think, I'm not a teacher and I've never worked in education, but I think when teachers speak to students, they could possibly do the same thing, help them with that.
I think that's absolutely spot on in terms of you have a choice. We don't think we have a choice, but when I'm talking to students, whatever age, they have a choice, and all we need to do is like a light bulb. We think, yes, I've got a choice. I can take offense if I wish. If I don't take offense, then it hasn't affected me.
Yes.
It's simple logic. Sorry,
yeah, thank you so much, John. Shall we ask Aaron to share, because Jackie also is on the line?
Yes. Well, what I wanted to say is that there's a term that I've found immensely helpful and also immensely scary, and it's professional hazard. So in every profession, there are certain attitudes and ways of thinking, certain automatic responses that you learn as part of those professions. And what's very hazardous about that is that if you go to your first school and you're a new teacher and you learn the automatic responses of that school, and they're very, as Robert was saying, treating children in a way that isn't very healthy, you might not agree with it, but that's, the group of people you belong to. And I think that's, I mean, what can you do about that? I think that what Tom said was very, very good, that you can, you know, change your own mindset and create a new process, and then, you know, that kind of changes how you observe things, and then that changes how other people observe you, and then maybe that will change other things, and hopefully that's how we can help mitigate professional hazard in these types of situations. And it's kind of the same thing that we were talking about on an individual level, on a bit more of a group level.
Yes, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Aaron. It's really an amazing share. Jackie, please go ahead.
I really appreciate all of these insights. And, you know, even with what Robert was saying, and then Hope was saying, you know, not all teachers are like that. I've seen both. So I've seen ones that are very controlling, like the control they have in the class. It fills their ego. It makes them feel, I think, safe in a certain position. And then I've seen ones, many that I've had on my podcast, that are very much about creating this open environment for students to really share in the learning with the teacher, like co-creation. And that's really where we're going, is co-creation, not top down, but circle. So I like the circles, that we're all learning together. I often share that with my students, like how they have taught me something in a lesson. So what I was thinking with these sharings is that sounds so simplistic, but one thing I think we can teach our children, and to start young, is just to slow down and pause. Because a lot of the automatic responses comes not only from conditioning, but it's also in a place in a world that's so manic and so fast paced, and so much about like click, you know, and our brains are firing in so many directions. And so building in time for students to slow down and be able to process, and then start to work as a practice of asking questions, come from a place of curiosity. Scientific thinking, I was just thinking, like, scientific thinking, if you think about the elements of that, like curiosity, asking questions, collecting data, taking the data, assessing it, discernment, throwing things away, trying it again, being okay to fail, like being okay to say I was wrong. That's so much about empathy. Like, if we thought more like scientists and use it in that way, like, it builds empathy. And so teaching children that, right? Like really teaching them how to slow down and think. So one thing I tried this year, again, very simple, but out of the box, when you think about all the technology, and this is where we're going, is every Friday I would have a no tech day and say, we're going to just have a prompt, you know, something very open-ended. It could be about something we talked about in class, something that they want to talk about, and we're going to write in a journal, handwrite in a journal, and we're just going to talk and have this space for, you know, everyone to share. And that one simple activity is just a practice to slow down. And I actually had a student, I did another type of journal called a sensory journal, where we went outside and we just took in our senses and wrote about it. And she gave me back the journal, like if I was going to collect it for a grade. And I'm like, no, this is for you to keep. And she's like, oh, I can keep it. I'm like, yeah, if you want to use it, please use it. Because I find journaling to be very helpful with, again, slowing down and processing the world around us, you know, and processing your own, you know, thinking and automatic responses. So that's just kind of what was percolating in my brain when you were all sharing, is pausing. Yeah.
This is awesome. Tom was just saying that you are actually showing us what true leadership is all about, pure leadership from you. And then Hope was saying, build in the slow, as you said, slow down, reflections, curiosity, connecting dots. Can you read the next one for me, Hope, please? Experimenting, and what's before it?
Discernment.
Yeah. That's a word for me to Google. Thank you
Well,
so much.
here's the thing, right, that you're now talking about, we progressed a little bit, and we're now talking about systems thinking, which is going to overtake the whole education show. So Google systems thinking. Forbes said last week, I think, that this is an urgent call to put systems thinking into the curriculum, because what it does, systems thinking, and we actually teach it, myself and Ola, is how to think about how you're thinking. In other words, what relationships do you have? Like for example, the class is working under a systems thinking approach. Children naturally take to systems thinking because if they do like mind maps, for example, they might see their relatives as part of that system, those dots, all those dots being connected, and the aunties and the friends and the teachers and so forth. So if they actually started exploring the environment that they're in, that's about sustainability and caring for the environment and caring for your fellow classmates, and are you going to make better friends by being kind to people? Well, yeah, hopefully. So they can actually start to decide using discernment as a way of exploring their environment, the world around them. And it's exactly the same process that we taught scientists in Houston, exactly the same process as, well, we just gone off.
No, I
sorry.
still can hear you.
Oh, sorry. Exactly the same process as scientists and children teach them systems thinking. And the World Economic Forum is saying we need systems thinking. We need to understand systems. So we need to capture them at an early age, so they can ask these questions, they can broach these subjects, and say, well, why am I being learned this way, or whatever it may be. But they can ask the questions. Systems thinking enables that process, and we use it in business all the time. We've used it for big corporations. But why should they get the benefit? We should be teaching children these techniques, and the teachers themselves. But so this is the next big thing, systems thinking. If you look up Forbes, in the last couple of days, they say it's an urgent requirement for education.
Thank you, John. Are we okay to move to the next slide, or does anybody have a buzzing comment to share about these 3 dots and how we connected them? All good? All right. So we already shared, so thank you so much for your very precious shares. Our last activity before the plenary that you will have with John is very simple. This is a classroom scenario, and I deliberately put the title of the topic or of the lesson as dots or blank, because I wanted you to decide based on our conversation, what do you want the lesson to be about? Because it doesn't really matter. It's still the same thing. Maybe perhaps because Jackie is the teacher here, what conceptual values stood out to you from this conversation so that we can consider it as the lesson? Hey, Jackie.
Is she here?
Do you want me to fill in the blank there?
Just a conceptual value that stood out to you out of the conversation we just had.
Something we want to teach the children?
Yeah, it could be, for example, kindness, whatever, any conceptual value that stood out to you.
Yeah, one thing I'm very passionate about is civil discourse. Teaching children how to have conversations where there will be different opinions and to be active listeners. Yeah.
So is that open mindset?
Open mindset, yeah.
Or growth? What do you like to call it? Open mindset or growth mindset?
I think open mindset
yeah,
would be more of what I'm talking about.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. So do you prefer if somebody reads the entire script for us, or do you prefer to read it silently?
I can read it really quickly if you want.
Thank you. Yeah, please.
This classroom scenario?
Yes.
So the teacher's teaching their 4th grade class about blank.
About open mindset.
Open mindset. There are 18 students. The lesson is only 40 minutes. After engaging with a nice video, the students are designing posters using the model: what, how, and why. They're working in groups. They seem engaged. 10 minutes before the end of the lesson, the students get to share their posters with the entire class. The teacher asks the presenters questions about their work, and they answer them. By the end of the lesson, the teacher thanked everyone and promised the group that did not get to present, they would present at the beginning of next lesson. The students thanked the teacher, happily left the class for their next lesson.
Thank you so much. And now what we need to do is, there is no trick here, okay? It's a very simple scenario, as you can see. We just need you to go in breakout rooms. I think 5 minutes will be good. What do you think, Hope?
Yep, 5 minutes.
Yeah. We need you to discuss what went well with this scenario, what could go better, and how could the teacher make it better? Because, you know, we spoke about quantum physics, all the possibilities, and not to do the automatic responses. So if you can spotlight any of this here, that'd be fantastic. We are really open. We don't have right or wrong predetermined answers. It's really opinion-based. So we'd like to see your opinions and your thinking. Okay? All good?
Yep, got it.
Thank you.
And I think people would leave that classroom feeling rushed and not listened to by design.
Thank you so much. So you think that
not by design deliberately, but it was a failure of design.
Yeah. So you think that the students are feeling rushed and not listened to because they did the why and how and what, and you think that it was enough to do only one thing of these?
40 minutes.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Any other shares? That's amazing.
I agree with Robert. There's just not enough time to discuss a topic that's so open-ended like that. I think a lot of learning comes from or through discussion, and that should be sort of the foundation of the entire lesson. Is the discussion, the back and forth, the civil discourse, as Jackie likes, and yeah. So there wasn't enough time. I agree with Robert.
Jackie?
I'm sorry, I picked a topic that definitely could not fit in 40 minutes.
Well,
and I will say 40 minutes.
And you know what happens in school? They want you to finish an entire chapter in a lesson. So
40 minutes is not enough time.
I'm not offended.
No.
Okay.
It was about a product. And that's usually what school is about. It's about a product. Like, well, we're creating a poster. You know what the kids are going to do? They're going to make it fancy. They're going to put stickers on it. They're going to make it look pretty because that looks really nice. They're going to be like, you know, kind of showy in their presentation. And you might miss the whole point of that lesson when it's a lesson that would be, like Jordan said, discussion, you know, and just like Robert said, just spend maybe that first class on just kind of me, you know, talking about it. Like, what does that look like? Why do you even think we have, you know, arguments in our country or in, you know, with each other? Like, why don't you think people listen to each other? So I think you're getting to the why behind the lesson first before you even do anything. And that in itself could be definitely 40 minutes.
I love that. I once did this thing I used to teach a long time ago, and I looked at my lesson plan and I had this moment of self-reflection where I was like, this is not a good lesson plan, or this isn't going to be timed well. And so I thought I would share it with the students. And I said, okay, this is how I planned it. And this is what my intention was and what I thought we would do. But then I turned it over to them and I said, what do you think I did a good job? Or do you think that, we as a group can redesign it and get their input and their insights. And it was the coolest thing. I mean, they were in grade 3, but they were very kind, but they gave a lot of constructive feedback about my lesson. But I think it was helpful for them to see that teachers or people in that position can sometimes have self-awareness. And then they got to rework it, and they were way more invested when we actually got to the lesson. So that would be my 2 cents, and something that I will, after that, many years ago, I will turn it back to the people, the participants, to say, you know, one person to design for all, like, am I the best person? Or yeah.
It's all about that top-down approach that education still embraces. And it's a hierarchy still, you know, where just one level up means more power and means more voice for you, but not for others. So I think we all agreed that there could be a lot better than this. Would you agree to go to the main room, or do you want to still discuss for a while? What are you happy to do?
I think we can join the rest of the people and see what their thoughts are.
Hey, see you on the other side. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm going to ask the other group first, and then we will share again our main takeaways from our group as well. And whoever's going to talk, they have, let's say, do you want someone to represent the entire group, or do you want or everybody to share your takeaways? Because then that will determine how much time they will have.
If we have one person to sum up for this before at our last, that would be
So
great.
we'll have, how about a minute, Hope? Does minute sound good?
Sure. Sounds good.
Okay.
Who wants to share
Cool.
from the other group?
Who's going to share? Yes, please, Steve. Okay, so 30 seconds for Steve and then 30 seconds for Tom, if that's okay. Steve, you're muted.
I lost 15 seconds because of the mute.
No,
But
you didn't.
the main sense of the group, most of the group noticed that not everyone had a chance to talk. And that struck me as a key. The missing element for me was also how the children were grounded initially in the concept. It may matter, almost as if we were talking about a musical group. Do they get to rehearse the song a little bit before they start playing together? So those were the 2 thoughts I had. I think that's 30 seconds worth.
These are excellent thoughts. Thank you so much, Steve. Tom.
Yeah, I think what we discussed as well was, you know, everyone needs to have a voice, and especially what John was saying is, you know, it's always best to have the smallest voice heard, and also from a teacher's point of view, you know, time management, you know, maybe preparing the lesson better, and maybe working with the children individually beforehand to, as Steve says, you know, have them better grounded and understand what it is that they're talking about.
Yes. Thank you so much, Tom. You know, the way I do it, if I have to allow everybody to share, is that first I pair them up as groups without my involvement. So group A would present to group B, and then group B would present to group A, and then they would give us each other feedback. And then at the end, we will gather as a class, as an entire class, but then every individual and not just group will share their main takeaway from the process. It doesn't have to be about their work. So let's say I really liked my friend's comment here. I really liked my friend's drawing. Whatever that is, any share about the entire process and not just about the product, which relates to Jackie's point. Jackie, 30 seconds.
Yes, the big takeaway that we shared was it did not work. So we did not have a highlight of what worked. Short amount of time for a big topic, and it just focused on product. And it did not allow for time to really think about the topic. And so I presented also like the why behind the lesson. I think students need to know why they're learning something. Absolutely. And that could be its own discussion first.
You know, everybody talks about differentiation, and they imagine it as just giving everybody a different worksheet. And that's absolutely not what differentiation is. Differentiation is the personalization of the learning experience. Where do you see yourself personally represented in this experience? Where do you see yourself culturally represented in this experience? Simple questions like, for example, who's your role model in having an open mindset? What makes them a role model to you? Speak to your partner about this so that they know their why, but not in a very directed way where sometimes the question can be too challenging for a fourth grader. You know, so sometimes you have to, because it's quantum physics, it's all the possibilities. You have one circle that you move, and then it goes directly to that circle, it moves there, and then you change the entire scenario and the entire script just by doing one little small change. What do you think? Your thoughts? Yes, please, Jordan.
I don't know if I'll be able to articulate this thought, but there's a bit of a contradiction happening. So you mentioned like individualization, differentiation, fumbling that word.
Yes.
But that moves us away from unity and away from the system, because we are individuals, but we're also, those individuals make up something bigger. So how do we acknowledge that? Maybe it's not always wise to have your own individual voice heard. Maybe it's sometimes wise to accept the system at hand and go with the flow of the system.
But
Do you
when
see what
you
I mean here?
share about yourself, you're also allowing others to share about themselves, and you see where the intersection happens and where the difference, the different way of thinking happens. And then you learn from others as well. So I don't see it as individualism as much as I see it about self-awareness. So you're more aware of yourself, which then allows you to have the awareness about the others, which then allows you to zoom out, because it always has to start with zooming in and then zooming out. I hope that answered to your question.
Can I just, first of all, Jordan, I think you're utterly brilliant, and I'm so thrilled to be in your company today. Having facilitated thousands of meetings along the lines you're talking about, what happens if you've got a good sharing going on is that, if not consensus, but a picture emerges naturally from the conversation. This is not often clearly evident to many people who have no experience in this. And what the good facilitator can do is start to hint to the group that there is this picture. And it's because you said this, and you said that, and you said this, and you said this, and so on. And collectively, out of the chaos of the universe, there's an emergent property. And it looks like this. It's not consensus. It's not consensus. It's emergence. And I think an unguided group will usually fail to see that. And a good teacher, facilitator, can point to it. And then there's that aha moment as they go, yes, you've seen it. And that's where the together comes out of the individual points.
Yes, when we recognize everyone's uniqueness, then we are able to become a unity.
I think systems thinking allows us to cater for individual expression and groupthink, and also we see it as 3 levels which we take people through, and the final one is universal consciousness. Because out of the sessions whether they were trying to get new patents new inventions with scientists and so forth, there are three levels. There's the individual expression and acknowledgement for their importance and their contribution, but there's also the groupthink, which occurs in teams, but it also goes beyond that, beyond the organization. And this is where I concur with what you've just said, that we can actually prepare people for that process rather than just throw them in the deep end, see what happens. We actually prepare them and say, this is systems thinking. This caters for the individual expression, which is really important. But at the same time, you're in a group setting. So you have to acknowledge other people's empathic wishes. So we're actually seeing it as levels of communication at deeper levels. I think what Robert was alluding to was that if we're prepared for this sort of deep dive into knowing the conversation at a deeper level and prepare for that, then it's less likely to be just meandering and not taking us anywhere. I've been into organizations that literally have mind maps that go around walls forever, but actually never reach conclusions. And that's because they need to know what the parameters are. And they need to know that they're in a safe environment, that there are preconditions to make sure that people aren't feeling either left out or in any way, abused verbally or whatever it may be. There needs to be a psychological safety, and we build this into the team building exercise. This should be exactly the same for schools and children. We build a psychological resilience, safety. I think all of these things are related. I don't know whether you agree with that, Robert, or whether I'm close to the mark.
I do, because otherwise it can't, the individual expression is not the eventual output. The output of the group is actually a direction, and you can get it all becomes it's noise. It can be, if it's not put together, it's noise.
Yes.
Beautiful. I love the honesty. It's the best. Speaking of emergent, we're just like, I am my element in heaven, listening to you all connect. This is the embodiment of exactly what we're talking about. So hats off.
I have to say, emergence comes from systems thinking. You study systems thinking, you'll see that emergence is one of the properties that comes from it. So I would beg people to look up systems thinking.
And that is quantum physics, Joan, because you change one variant and then you see what comes out of it.
Yeah. Sorry, I've jumped in there myself. Sorry, Hope.
No, it's great. Thanks, everybody. Does anyone have a share or a thought or?
Just one thought from me. It was just I put in the chat. I talk a lot, like in my like my posts and my videos and stuff, and I talk about communication, but moving beyond communication to connection. And I think when you're talking about being in the group and listening to each other, understanding each other, it's not just sort of saying something to somebody, it's saying something to somebody, but then building a relationship with that person, knowing that person, connecting with them. And I think in leadership especially, which, as you said earlier, it's not just in one specific industry, it's everywhere in the world, in every industry, connecting with somebody is so important, in the workplace, in the school, and at home, it's just so important.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Tom. We are very appreciative of you all. Lots of love to you all. Thank you so much for coming today. I want to share my screen because we have a very small activity. We're conscious of time. Don't worry, we won't keep you. I'll just share our plenary for today. If you've been to schools, they call it plenary for some reason. It's the last activity. Okay. Here we go. Over to you, John. Oh, sorry.
Okay, we're just going to demonstrate very quickly the power of psychological improvements in the way we actually respond to things. And we have used this in lots of sessions. And what you've got to do, rather than fold your arms this time, if you can put your hands on your hips, okay, put your hands on your hips and look up to the ceiling, right? And then I want you to fake a laugh like like that, right? Now it's impossible for your brain to think that you're sad when you're laughing like this. Plus it's
Father is
infectious.
looking at me like I'm crazy. It's so funny. Just imagine you look over to your mother's like head back, trying to laugh.
And you know, it's a funny thing that with the foster children, we used to get them to do this so they could actually relieve any sadness they had or anger or whatever it was, because your brain believes you when you send it psychological signals like breathing calmly and all those sort of things. Your brain believes you in the same way that watching a film, and it makes it exciting, the film. Your brain thinks it's in the real situation. So we can fool our brains to think I'm a happy person. And so you can do it and it works. You get your loved one to do it, and they might think you're crazy, but if they start laughing, it's infectious. And there's loads and loads of techniques like that, which is about psychological safety, building psychological safety, which we can build for children. And children naturally are the greatest human beings that sort of being creative and expressing themselves. We can learn so much from children. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that little exercise.
I love ending on a laugh, and I wanted to thank you, Ola, and thank you, John. What an honor it was to spend time with all of you today. I always say, whoever turns up to each of these live learning events needed to be here. We all needed to meet each other. We all needed to land in this space and share and connect. So I want to thank you all. I will send a follow-up. And my father just saw a photo this week of a man from something firing squad laughing.
In front of the firing squad.
He was laughing. Okay.
Laughing.
Um,
that was his revenge on
okay.
people who were killing him.
Terrible, but amazing. Big love to you all, and we will be in touch. And I think that Ola and John are going to be doing more live learning events and sharing and infusing our lives. So have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I think Stephen wanted to say something before we go. Did you want to say something, Stephen?
Please.
I think that moment passed. I think that got said beautifully by Robert. So I'm very satisfied with what got said. Thank you, Ola.
So much. Thank you, everyone. Lots of love. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.